So have you noticed that the fan communities of multimedia, science fiction, and fantasy franchises are obsessed with the question of canon until they're not? The debate in the Halo fan community about the Forerunner-human connection is actually a really good example to think through this relationship between textuality and canon. Basically, the text of the first three Halo games seems to indicate that the Forerunners are ancient humans. The later canon dispels this. We all kind of go with that canon for like 10 years, but then we no longer trust the authority, which designates the canon, so we default to a new textual reading rather than a hermeneutic reading. I'm going to explain what this means. So you'll notice that the way fandom uses the word canon is a little bit different from the rest of literary studies. The word canon you might associate with sainthood or religious writing. To be canonized as a saint is to be added to the official list of sanctioned saints. To belong to the literary canon is to be an officially recognized, valuable text. And this is also the origin of the word canon in fandom communities. But then you begin to see sort of a semantic slide happen where people not only talk about text, so like games, books, textual documents as part of the canon, but scenes, ideas, characters, things that exist inside of the world, fictional entities. So people begin to talk about the canon, not as if it's a list of texts, but as the fictional world itself, or the real fictional world, as opposed to a head canon. I call this standard fan relationship to canon hermeneutic because it does mirror a lot of historical Christian Bible study. Because historically Christians believed that the Bible was divinely inspired, they were more interested in deciphering the content of canonical texts than focusing on the textuality of those texts, until they no longer trust the authority designating the canon. So then in the 20th century, a new way of reading emerges, which focuses on criticism and interpretation of a text on its own terms, inside its own boundaries, rather than as it relates to some wider reality. What is the text itself saying? What is the text itself doing to people who read it? So if you read the text of Halo 3 like a literature PhD, you would come away with the interpretation that the text is saying the Forerunners were human. So I guess I'm making the argument that the Halo community is finally going post-canon. And I think this is a really good thing. Like, we're getting to a place where we can take and interpret these texts in their own right, as opposed to trying to fit them into an arrangement that's designated by an authority. And people who are still invested in the question of canon are going to try and undermine this by saying it's a proliferation of 1,000 head canons or something like that. But I think that's ridiculous. Every text is meant to be taken on its own terms. You will enjoy these things so much more if you approach them like a literature student and you allow them to generate their own spaces for interpretation, rather than deferring to whoever the hell is heading the multinational conglomerate now. But anyway, what do you think? Let me know in the comments.